All right. We're live coming through. Good evening, sir. I know it's late where you
Good
are. I
evening.
appreciate you coming in. How's it going?
Very well, my friend, very well.
It's great. So you're able to participate with our Halloween themed part of the season for the show, episode 42, 10 left in the year. I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to the conversation here. Hoping that our sound is good for everyone listening tonight. But
Good, okay.
with that being said, let's get into this one because it's going to be a fun one. So, welcome to Scripts on Saturdays, the only screenplay review show on the interwebs discussing scripts, both professional and amateur, circulating around Hollywood, giving you, the TV and movie-going audience, a behind-the-scenes and inside track on what writers are pushing and what producers are buying. I'm your host, the Script Doctor, and joining me this week, back for the fourth time, is Gums 1983. Welcome back, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much, brother, man. It's lovely to be here, and it's nice to see everybody in the chat. Adega, Darren, Tom Blaine. It's lovely to see everybody coming back to see this. I'm going to put my, this is a hill I'm going to die on. I enjoyed this script. I've got one shout out to make at the very start. A wee shout out to my little brother, Max, who's smashing his courses in National Grid in the UK. Top of his class, going to be the best jointer in the UK. That's it. But apart from that, absolutely, thank you very much for having me back. It's nice to be back. Yeah, it's a wee small hours here, but it's a damn good script, mate.
Well,
Damn good script.
that's why I like having you on here. Also, yes, congratulations to your bro. That's great to hear. Want to appreciate everyone listening live today and anyone who's listening on the replay. Thanks for stopping by. We
Absolutely.
have a fun script tonight. It is titled Blood Rush. This placed 36 on last year's blacklist. That's for 2023. And it placed with 11 votes. So this is another script. Back to back, we've had scripts that are only 11 votes, and they managed to be from 48 to 52 to 36 in this case. This week's script is written by Andrew Ferguson, and this is not the only script he managed to get on this year's blacklist. So he's got some talent, or at least he's preferred by the producers that were voting for this one here. Gums, share with us the log line for Blood Rush, please.
I'm going to bitch and listen to my cinema voice, right?
Go for it.
Right, so in response to a mysterious rise in Miami gang violence, a meticulous FBI agent gets recruited by a covert operations unit, only to discover the enemy they are fighting may not be human.
Well done. I love that. Okay, the synopsis for this script. FBI agent Victoria Lake, who goes by Vic, is drawn into Miami's brutal gang wars, but when a grisly crime scene reveals bodies drained of blood, she uncovers a far darker threat. With the help of a mysterious Black Ops team, Victoria faces ruthless gangs and an unknown force hunting them all. So, you've already spilled a little bit of the blood, so to speak, saying that
Mhm.
you're going to die on this hill, that you like this script. Okay, share your initial thoughts. Let's get into the details of it, sir. Let's go.
Right, so from the outset, there are grammatical errors, there are bits and bobs that you expect from these kind of scripts, right? You expect it. You can see the writer's sort of passion coming through. He's got that kind of like thriller, horror, action. He's got that kind of thing.
Hmm.
It reminds me of kind of 90s movies, but I enjoyed it. It was a very good read, and we'll get into that further on. But I just think it was a very good read, and it hooked me in the sense that when I was sitting with my friend earlier on, and he was in the house that made dinner for the family and I and my friend,
Hmm.
and I read him two parts of it, and he went, "That sounds awesome." And he doesn't read scripts, he does the like films. He went, "That sounds awesome." Common guy, there you go. Do you know what I mean?
No,
That
I
kind of
kind
thing.
of I completely get your perspective, and I'm in the same boat. This is definitely a high concept script. It does have some density to some of its some of its.
I mean, some of it's you just go,
That's okay. Some of it's you have a lovely animal nearby. It's adorable.
oh,
I
sorry.
empathize greatly because I've grew up with dogs, so I love it.
I do
Um,
apologise everyone if you can hear my dog, right?
don't worry about it,
It's
man. It gives a
right.
charm, and it makes it's authenticity to the show because it's things happen. It's like we're not overly produced here. We don't want to be, but dude, listen. If you want to even bring your dog on camera, go right ahead. People love that. I love that
No,
type
if
of
I
stuff.
bring him on camera, he'll need an agent. He'll need an agent. He'll need like a
It'll
couple
just
of
go to
million
his
dollar
head.
contract. That's it. I mean, he's already the best looking border collie in Scotland. So here we come. Say hello. Right up. Say hello. Come on. Up. Come up. No, you're not coming. He's
Oh, it's
got
already a
get him.
diva.
Aye, well, you see his tail in the background there, right? But anyway, I do apologise everyone for the
No,
dog. I
it's
do apologise.
okay. Ah, it's great. It's okay. But so yeah, this script has a lot of dense description to it, which
Yeah.
makes it well. Once you realize that this is kind of the natural form, you ease into it a little bit better than other scripts that have been very very dense, where you're like, this is a slog to read. Because the first page for me was a little bit of a slog, but as it kind of picked up and you kind of saw how the flow was going, you're like, oh
Yep.
okay. And a lot of the details, especially in some of the action set pieces, really did
Mhm.
create a strong sense of spatial geography. So you could kind of picture every location they're in and where each player is on the proverbial chessboard
Absolutely.
of sorts.
Um,
I had this one little pet peeve, and that is we have Victoria Lake, which I appreciate the name because it reminds me of Veronica Lake, classic actress from the 1950s. But
yep.
she goes by the nickname Vic, and I'm like, okay, that's a little bit too masculine. It's like, what are you trying to do here? Because it's not that they spell it VIC, which is the feminine version. They spell it VICK, which is the masculine version.
Oh my God. Hey, come here. Be quiet. Sorry, I do apologise.
That's okay.
Right, it's personally to me that doesn't bother me. Right, you want to call yourself Vic, you want to call yourself Pete, you want to call yourself Penelope. That didn't really care, right? But I get what you're saying. I think how it started was really good. Like it's a instant
Well,
hammer blow.
we're charging into essentially like a drug den. It's a sting
What's
from
that?
the FBI. So it's got lots of tactical stuff. Now I know, like for you as a casual audience member, the average
Yeah,
person,
yeah.
I completely understand you don't see a discrepancy with Vic to Victoria, because from your perspective, when you're watching it, you're always seeing a woman on screen, so all the time.
Yeah.
When you're reading
No,
it,
I get the point.
yeah, when you're reading it,
I
sometimes you
absolutely get your
forget,
point.
and you're like, oh right, it's a girl.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I,
I will say
I
this:
totally get the point.
they don't. This script does a very good job of not making her a warrior that can plow through everything. Like they talk about the fact that she's got guts and that she can stand, at least with the ambition and the drive, she can stand with the best of them. But at no point does she stand out as if she's the most competent person in combat
Yeah,
with any of the characters.
absolutely. She's not a Mary Sue. Let's put our cards on the table. She's not a
Yeah,
Mary Sue. She's not going to like instantly like save everyone and deal with everyone in the world, right? She's an FBI agent. She's had a horrific past. Do you know what I mean? One of her, it doesn't say who, but we're going to probably lean on the dad.
right.
One of her parents is killed in gang violence, and she takes that as an inspiration or spark to become, the best anti-gang violence person in the US or on the East Coast at least.
Yeah, because she's a native of New York. She's
Yep.
transferred to Florida after 6 months ago. She has 10 years under her belt as an FBI agent. Highly motivated by the fact that one of her parents was killed due to gang violence, and she's leading this team. But what's kind of funny, we get into this kind of interesting pattern with
Mm.
Victoria as a character, and that is she keeps losing her gun when she's in combat. I counted 5
Yep.
times when she gets into a scuffle, she gets her gun knocked out of her hand. So she has to claw, or actually, in most cases, she is thrown around like a rag doll and just utterly
And
beaten, and
yeah,
has to be rescued
enough.
quite constantly, actually,
Yep.
except for one point, much later
Okay.
on.
Well,
But
certainly we won't get into that. Absolutely. And
yeah,
the levels of violence in this from the outset, I think it's quite gratuitous in a certain sense. You can see the dog is panting and walking about. Um, Certainly, I think certain points maybe shouldn't have leaned on that as much. You know what I mean? You could maybe use psychological horror a wee
Yeah,
bit more.
because here's one of the things. So the script itself spends a lot of time holding back the admission that this is the FBI versus vampires. Like they do so much to try and say, well, is it vampires? Is it not? But it's so clearly vampires. There's nothing. There's garlic. Like when they go into the in the raid in the opening act,
Yes.
there's tons of corpses around that they can't see because everything is boarded up. It's pitch dark. This movie takes place mostly at night, and
Obviously.
we get a glimpse at our first antagonist named Dorian, who we don't know that his name is Dorian yet, but he's got this intricate rose tattoo on his neck, and this is where Vic, she loses her main gun, but she manages to grab the pistol that she keeps on her ankle, which she calls the Saturday Night Special, which I thought was a clever name.
And yes. There's a few clever names in it I quite like myself as well. It made me smile and I went, I get that. But I mean, let's be honest. Let's paint the picture for everybody that's watching.
Go for it, please.
Right. So you the FBI raid the apartment, right?
Mm.
So you hear check one, check two, check three, living room clear, kitchen clear, whatever. All these rooms are getting cleared out. And amazingly, she ends up in one of the rooms and she sees something at her peripheral vision, literally moving like smoke,
Right.
gone. She looks up and there's 10 cadavers hanging from meat hooks.
Upside
ceiling.
down, arms ahead.
Bled
Everything's
bled dry.
into 50-gallon oil barrels.
Drums.
Yeah, just drums.
Drums, yes. So any big ass oil drums, and then you look at it and you go, that's in the first 3 pages. And
Yeah,
you go,
right away.
this is going to be an interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. This is interesting. I'm looking forward to this. And then at the very start, I feel that Vic or Victoria, or whatever she wants to call herself, right? She was written very well. In terms of like, you then got a reason. It took a wee while to find out the reason why she's doing what she's doing. But then, she's our partner comes in. He's dry heaving. He's been sick. The TAC guys, the SWAT guys have came in. They're not happy either.
Right.
Obviously, these are other cadavers. And then it cuts. She goes downstairs. She speaks to, I believe, her gaffer.
She speaks to, well, we did miss one point, which is when she encounters Dorian, the guy that was able to skirt around her without seeing the stuff. They get into a scuffle. He knocks her gun out. She grabs her hidden ankle piece and manages to plant 3 right in his chest. And he is down for the count. She checks his pulse, assumes he's dead. Her support team comes in. They start, tearing down the boarded up windows, getting some natural light flowing in. And then Dorian gets up, freaking everybody out, and then just leaps out the window and vanishes. And everybody has no idea what the heck's going on.
Like a fart in the wind.
And then basically the assistant deputy director, or at least the deputy director of the Miami branch, has we find out this is the first time he's ever left his office to actually follow up on what Vicky was doing here, and how, well, they didn't get the main perp. They have uncovered and got at least a firmer lead on what's been going on in Miami, at least in this county that they're in, where there's been around 50 homicides reported over like the last year. And
500% increase in homicides and people disappearing or
missing persons, and that's not including the undocumented stuff either. So they really set the framework of, so yeah, this is a problem that's got the feds involved. And
absolutely.
Well, Vicky and her partner Eddie are kind of just debriefing themselves, and that's not innuendo. They're just going over the details of what they just experienced in the car. They got these 2 other guys who, I will say, their introduction is a bit spotty because they're kind of described like they're fans of Miami Vice with their fashion sense. You got Bishop,
3mm gold chains.
Yeah. He's got Bishop, who's got a vape pen, a blood red vape pen, and then you got this other guy
Of course he
named
does.
Atticus, who is just steel eyes. And they're just staring right at Victoria and Eddie. And I'm thinking, when I was reading this, I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of a weird setup because they're at a crime scene. We don't know who they are. So are they fellow FBI agents? Are they something else? If they aren't, why aren't they being escorted away? If they are, why aren't they talking to someone else, or why are they just standing kind of on the peripheral? And if they're antagonists, this is actually just shoddy writing, because now we've got you're kind of tipping your hand a little bit too early. But we end up jumping to a new location with a debriefing, and the murder boards and all that type of stuff, and then we find out that these two guys are from like a black ops agency. They whatever their three letters are, nobody knows what they are, but they have been checked and verified by the FBI that they're legit, and they want to bring Vicky in to help with this investigation because she saw Dorian, because of her encounters with this Dorian character. And so this what brings her into this world. And this is where, like, as I'm reading this linearly, I'm thinking we've got a kind of a hang up here, because we now have this character of Vicky who, in the first 10 pages, all we know is that she's an FBI agent and that she's got some guts to her. And even though she's not able to fight off every man easily, she does have enough wits about her to defend herself in a plausible situation. But we don't know who she wants, why she's got part of the FBI, why this investigation is important to her. It's very television-like, I would say, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because with TV, you have several episodes to grow your character, especially in the hour-long dramas, to get familiarized with them. But into a movie, especially one that's, supposed to be under 2 hours, you kind of want to get those things right off the bat, right away. You want to hear Luke Skywalker say, "Hey, I want to go to the academy," and Uncle Owen says, "No, you're staying here for another season." Like you kind of want those simple parts here.
Absolutely. I will need to go and deal with him.
Don't worry about it. I'll update I'll happily entertain our wonderful listeners while you take care of that beautiful animal of yours. No, just get up and walk away without saying anything. That makes for great drama. But so really, what we've got here is we have our main character is technically being sort of dragged by the writer's hand away from the rest of the story. Like that's basically what it is. We're just following her of sorts, but she's not leading us to the story. These other characters, this Bishop character, this Atticus character, is the one that's kind of pulling us through this story here, and we're getting fed little bits of information, which is not too terrible. It is kind of lacking a little bit, but it's very clear that they're making great efforts. The writer's making great efforts to avoid just getting to the point that we're dealing with the supernatural vampires here, and they're doing it in a way that works better for television than it does for movies, because it takes, I think it's around 45 or 50 pages before they actually start using the term. But in that in that subsequent 35 pages after the opening, it is all about just dodging around all the points of what this team is trying to do, and it's really kind of weird. It's just really kind of weird, because you want to tie in the plot of the film to the characters' goals right off the bat. And then without trying to spoil what the ending is, because that's going to be a little tricky to talk around, but we'll pull it off here tonight for you guys. Without trying to spoil the ending, you really need to make sure that whatever motivations your main characters have, that they are very clear. And this was the one big falling of the script, from my opinion, is that the main goals for Victoria, not established at all. But we totally get why Bishop is doing this. He is ex-Green Beret, ex-Special Forces. He's ex all these things. and he's been assigned to head up this division here that is supposed to keep things under control. And we explore the mystery of these homicides that have increased 500% in this first half of the script, which is basically saying, okay, we're going to talk about all these various gang members that operate in Miami, and we're going to try and figure out, which one of them is the one that's leading the charge of all these homicides and these missing people part. So it's a very straightforward procedural in that regard. The only difference is that we have this Atticus character who doesn't have a last name, or maybe Atticus is his last name and he doesn't have a first name. We don't know. But there's something very eerie about him. He's very cold, very confident, very assertive. He likes to pop up in places where he wasn't standing initially within the room, and he freaks out Victoria a few times doing this, where he's really far away. 1 second, she glances down at her notes as she's getting briefed by Bishop, and then looks up and he's now right next to her, shoulder to shoulder. 1 second later, that part is weird. We did have in the script a really BS moment where they're driving to a location where they're going to be surveilling a suspect, and as they're approaching there, they kind of get soft ambushed by carjackers, 2 of them with shotguns, and they don't do anything. Atticus and Bishop, they're in the front seats, they're driving. Victoria's in the back. She's nervous because these criminals armed have come up and on either side of the windows, and they're screaming at them to open the doors. And apparently Atticus just has to stare at one of them, and the carjacker just projectile vomits, and then just walks away and takes off, and then the other one just agrees to do that too. And I'm like, that's not fun. That's not making things difficult for your characters. The guy can just cold stare, a carjacker down like it's nothing. No banter, no drawing a bigger gun, nothing to really escalate the conflict, to really do anything. It's kind of a red herring scene, in my opinion. But I can kind of see how that would visually look for a badass moment for the actors, but I don't know if it'd be an earned moment for an audience. So that thing kind of left me hanging, well, what is this scene actually? Because you're supposed to not make things easy for your main characters, even for the supporting characters in that context. And so what you do is you set up a carjacking moment, and then you just immediately dismiss it. So it felt like a very disposable scene, because all it did was say, oh, Atticus has this cold stare that can scare normal criminals. Why not do this in something more useful, like an interrogation, where you're actually furthering the plot forward as opposed to just stopping the script cold to do this type of thing? I don't know. But this was kind of one of the parts that was troubling on the screenwriting side of things. When you contrast that with a set piece where they managed to find this Haitian gang leader hiding out, and then we get onto this crazy foot chase that's probably very similar to what was used at Casino Royale. They're just going through all these little areas of Miami, circling all the way around until they finally come to a head, and then they get their guy, and then they tie him up. But when they bring him back to the place where they found him, what they discover is 3 severed heads with garlic sticking out of their mouths. And Atticus and Bishop and Victoria, well, Atticus and Bishop just think this is nothing, but Victoria is freaking out, and she's kind of examining these heads, and she's trying to figure out what's going on. All the while, they're also focusing on, okay, well, we know this Haitian criminal is head of this, and they're making the deal, right? So Richard, they're making this deal where if the Haitian criminal tells them how he got to this position and where the so-called enemy is, they'll let him go. So what was your thoughts on this type of interrogation scene?
I thought it was well done. In terms of what they're trying to do, is they're keeping the secret, shall we say, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's little hints here and there. If you can pick them up, you'll get them instantly. I liked how Bishop was pretty much non-plus, just kind of like a Kevin Bacon type character, just
Yeah.
not really bothering his arse, to be honest with you, let's be fair. And I like how Atticus just put the fear of God in him, because he's seen something that we don't know yet. And he's looking at it going, you are like the Antichrist, you are like, whatever else, everything that goes with it. And he speaks because Atticus is there.
Well,
And you're like,
because he points at Atticus and said he's one of them. And then when they're
yeah.
pushed, we get something, again, another thing I don't like too much, which is we get flashbacks, but they're very quick flashbacks. They're like a page and a quarter in length. And we cut down to, so this guy, this Haitian criminal whose name I think is Toussaint. Toussaint. He says, yeah, so we were doing some drug trafficking on Miami and whatnot, and everything's going fine, and we're doing this with the Zoes, whatever they're called, the Zoes.
I didn't like that. I didn't like the name. I didn't like the names. If you're going to call them Zoe, call them Zoe. You can't call them Zoe because Zoe's a woman's name.
Yeah.
And then you can't hate them for drug trafficking because they're called Zoes.
Yeah.
In Scotland, they're called Zoes. You're like, I can't hate a Zoe.
Yeah.
I've got a wee cousin called Zoe. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to hate her. Anyway, sorry.
Exactly. So you find out that they're working together to move the drugs that are on this route, and then they just get ambushed by these guys that doesn't matter how many times they shoot them, doesn't matter how many times they surround them, they just tear everybody apart. And then he describes that they're feasting on his allies and his own men, and it's only by the skin of his teeth that him and a couple other guys managed to get away and hide. It was like, and the worst part is that some of the ones that did get away with him, they were bit. And they started to turn, and that's when he basically chopped off their heads and stuffed garlic in their mouths. And he's trying to say, like, this is all, like, this is the route that we took to move our stuff. And that's basically all the Bishop wants. He's like, tell me what that route is. Drop all the pins on a Google map for us, because and if the route checks out, we will let you go. And of course, Vic, being the strict FBI agent, is like, but we got them on like assault with a deadly weapon, especially assault on a federal officer. We got them admitting to drug trafficking, all this type of stuff.
Oh,
and we got to arrest him. And he's like, yeah, no, we don't care. We don't care about that.
Well, she had to show her badge, remember, because it was Bishop said that. He went,
yeah,
we've got you on racketeering, we've got you on blah 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 blah, drugs and whatnot. And you shot at a federal officer. He's like, I don't see a badge. And then it pans to Vic, excuse me, and she's looking at the garlic inside the mouth, fuck is this?
Yeah.
And then he's like, flash your badge. So she's like, instantly up, badge up, like that. They go, look at that, carry on, right? I get the point, but in nowhere, like, you say you don't really like the flashbacks. I think that kind of fleshes out the kind of hidden story that we already know what's happening, like, there's something going on that's no normal. It's a supernatural type thing.
Right.
I quite enjoyed it because it kind of filled in the blanks. Because if no, this is just like bad guy A. Do you know what I mean? Put a bullet in and be done with it. We'll go to bad guy B and we'll go to bad guy C and then the super uber bad later on. Can I give a wee bit of background for them and explain why he was so terrified of this guy, Atticus, who's like floating about like a fart in the wind? Gave a bit of backstory to that. I quite enjoyed that as a person, a normal person who watches films. I would enjoy that because normally I'd be like, why are you scared of a bloke with blue eyes? I've got blue eyes. Are you scared of me? No, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I liked it that way. In that sense, I liked it in that sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's heavy-handed in some points. I mean, we will get into them.
Right.
But,
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, it works, like, this part works very much like a procedural. Like if you're watching like a special victims unit or CSI, You're like, oh, you're interrogating the guy. He's telling the story. Here's the flashback. We get his voiceover over top of it, which is what the script does. And I'm like, okay, yeah. If this was like, say, a 2-hour pilot to a TV show, wouldn't bother me as much because it feels more necessary to the story. The only thing that kind of like, because again, flashbacks are really, really hard to do because more often than not, they do stop the story cold. I think Toussaint's narration helps further this along a little bit, but unfortunately, it's not the same type. It's not repeated in the same method when they do other flashbacks later on, because this does have flashbacks you get in something like The Untouchables,
Yes.
or trying to think of another movie that's not going to give away the ending that does flashbacks as well.
Yeah, yeah, wait.
But there's
I think
there's a
we're
few
there.
out there that just do it where you're like, oh, okay, Sixth Sense is another one. So Sixth Sense is another one that won't give away the ending here, where you're like, oh, okay, he's the dead guy, because that's not what the case is in this. That's not what is the case here. But this gets them on to their next point. So what I did appreciate about this plot wise is that each set piece progresses the investigation one more step. So the first one is the drug den with Dorian. That gets Vicky to on the radar of Bishop and Atticus. Bishop and Atticus are like, well, we need to tie these deaths to a larger group of deaths here. The only gang that's kind of been laying low is this one. We've got a bead on where they might be. We want Vic to lead this, so they go do that. They capture the guy, and he says, yeah, we've been laying low for months because we're terrified of these creatures that are killing our men, and they took our drug route. And it's like, okay, great. So now we have the drug route. So their next step is they're planning the sting. We are going to monitor this drug route. We're going to find out what's going on here, and then we're going to capture these guys and question them to find out where their boss is and who's really the gang responsible for this. And it's very, very simple to follow. And I really appreciated that because it wasn't convoluted. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is an elaborate drug trafficking thing where they're using submarines and airplanes and we don't know who to trust and all that type of stuff. But the writer did a great job cutting all that away and just saying, we have this third party. We don't know who they are. We know they're very strong. We know they've scared the crap out of all these other gangs. And this is the route that they're taking to traffic whatever they're trafficking. So,
You've got to remember as well, there's a tiny wee subplot.
yeah.
Basically, what you're saying as well, there's another side plot to that. With Eddie.
Well, there's actually two subplots to that. So there's the hidden subplot, which is part of the spoiler, and then the second one is Vic is actually taking blood samples from those severed heads, and she gives them to Eddie to do a kind of like a secret analysis on for her because she's trying to find out, like, tell me what's going on with this blood. I want to get details on this. At the same time, give me see what we can find on Bishop and Atticus and to who they are, what agency they're with, because whatever they're showing me, it is loony, and I don't know how to deal with it. And if I want to see how deep this goes before I end up becoming thrown to the wolves as a discarded, patsy for a botched operation, because that's what she's worried about.
See, when I read that part, the only thing I remember was Ralph Wiggum in the back of the Springfield school bus saying, hey, I'm in danger. When I read that, I went, perfect. See, they just cut and put that meme up. Chef's kiss. I mean, that's it.
Right.
But no, I genuinely, as I say, I genuinely enjoyed it. I will. That's a hill I'll die on. But I agree with you at certain points. I mean, I do believe that the violence in it is a bit gratuitous. Let's be honest, right? It's a bit much.
Right, but it's
It
not.
doesn't know.
It wasn't too
It doesn't know
much.
what it wants to be. But it doesn't know what it wants to be. Is it going to be like Terrifier? Is it going to be like Saw? Is it going to be like?
Is it going to be like Hostel? Like, we don't know.
Exactly. Is it going to be like,
Or
are we
is it going to
see this?
be, or is it going to be like Blade, like any other type of vampire film, right?
If you take her out of the equation and put Blade in there, there's your 2027 movie. They're right there. That's it done.
No, there's a lot of stuff like that because, like, Blade appears simpler than it actually is because it's a vampire story. But I think the biggest hiccup that Marvel would have, that maybe this script can actually help them sort out, is the fact that Marvel has to reconcile where vampires have been and why now is the time that we're seeing this type of story. I'm of the mind that you have to, at this point, you'd have to predicate it on Thanos' snap and that blip, where half the vampires vanished, and that created a power vacuum. And then,
let's be honest, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and then when they come back, you now have the vampires that were once in power, no longer in power, and they've started a war which has now made its way to the mortal world, and that's where Blade can be a little bit more exposed. I mean, that's a simple premise that you start with, and then you just go, okay, it's two vampire factions fighting each other, and Blade is like, I'm just going to get rid of all of them because they're hurting these innocent people. That's your simple plot. and all you have to do to come,
Marvel,
yeah,
send the fucking checks, and we'll write it for you. Done. There you go, right? We'll
right.
get a better job than the guys you've got. But honestly, when there was a certain scene, I don't know if we've not got to it yet. Did we pass the? No, we've not.
No,
We've got
we're
yeah,
right after
no,
just finding the route, so we haven't even gotten to the next action set piece yet.
that's fine.
But
Because
I will
I was
say,
going with that straight away.
so some of the dialogue in this, it's very
Aye.
very straightforward.
Yeah.
A little bit from the stuff out of Bishop is kind of borderline cringe because he has some bad jokes, but they're not ideologically driven. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna. He has puns on vampires and what it means, but not directly. Like I likened him to like one of the Agent Johnsons from Die Hard. Like,
You said that, yep. I
um,
think personally, Kevin Bacon, there you go, that's it. Just give the man.
oh yeah,
Let him
Kevin
chew the
Bacon would ham
scenery.
it up real brilliantly.
Just let him chew the scenery, let him have his wee vape, let him chew the scenery, and sell his mobile phones, and he'll be jamming. Right? That's it.
Oh yeah,
That's made for him. I mean, they're looking at everybody else, but I mean, certainly see when you get to the point where they actually attack the convoy,
yeah.
you
So
go,
the convoy was pretty. This is where we
Devils.
get into a lot of the tropes where we see vampire isms that are, I would say, closer to what Buffy the Vampire kind of established,
Yes.
and then
Yes,
what
I'll agree with that.
later Blade kind of copied into, than what,
Aye.
because I really wanted. So here's a fun fact when you're dealing with supernatural characters, especially in an original IP, is that even though you're drawing on, say, mummies or vampires or werewolves or creatures from the Black Lagoon of whatnot, you don't have to follow the supernatural rules of those various species, so to speak, those supernatural
Right.
species. All you have to
Yes.
do is establish what type of rules you think would work best to serve your story that fits into that. Obviously, you're not going to call a vampire unless they're sucking blood or at least sucking some sort of energy out of their victims. Thus, for sustenance, right? Because
I've got a
that's
few
the
women that
core
do that.
aspect of vampires. But one of the things I liked here, which I wish they did more, is that they say, yeah, the whole needing to ask permission to enter your domicile, that doesn't work for them. They'll go wherever they want. I'm like, that's good. What else can you show me that's different? Well, that was as far as it went, unfortunately, because
Aye.
if you stake them in the chest, if you hit them with holy water, they just burn away and turn to ash. Which I'm like, oh, I've seen that in 2 franchises about vampires, like right off the bat. I'm certain it's been used in many others. The turning to ash part really is only a byproduct of the sunlight aspect. The other part is like you just stab them in the chest and they just kind of die, and then they either wither away slowly or their corpses they're just actual corpses. I wanted to see something new in that, but I don't begrudge the writer for not going a little bit extra further in that regard. You want to make this as familiar as you possibly can.
I'm going to say that. I was going to say that. I think to be honest with you, that's where he's went. Sorry, I had to start there. Sorry.
Go no, please.
I think that he's writing it for the common man, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's writing it for people who aren't really up in vampires. I mean, let's be honest. Twilight was shit, right?
Well, yeah, because
And
there's nothing that really harms a vampire in those series. It's
was
not.
that
It
like,
wasn't even about vampires. It was
not from the diamonds and all that carry on, right? What nonsense, right? But when you think of a vampire movie, you think of like Bram Stoker's Dracula.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You think of like that horrible one with Tom Cruise. The name escapes me off the top of my head, right? But
Yeah, Interview with a Vampire.
that's the one, right? But you think of these kind of things, right? Where these are already tried, tested, done tropes. We know Van Helsing as well. Sorry, Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
These are tried and tested tropes, and you go right. And I'm absolutely with you. See, if you're going to kill a vampire, well, they did one. They cut his head off. They cut the front biker's heads clean off, and they were done.
Yeah.
But there was nothing stated about. Was it just a normal bit of wire, or was it silver wire?
No,
Or
they
was
just
it
described it as razor wire, and that was
razor
basically
wire?
it. Which I thought that was fine.
Mhm.
The thing that I have to remind anyone who read the script or anyone that's listening, if they don't, since they probably don't know exactly, we have yet to be get confirmation that these are vampires, right? And the writer's taking great effort to try and delay that catharsis, that revelation. my point was that if you wanted to do that, you could still use the stake through the heart and the bullets with holy water in them. But if you have how the vampires disperse in a different way, that affords you a little bit more of the time that you're trying to take to delay that gratifying answer of, yes, these are vampires. And not only that, you're saying these aren't just any vampires, these are my vampires. And that's kind of what you want to do with a vampire story. To the
Anybody with
point.
half a brain, anybody with half a brain is going to put two and two together.
Oh, exactly.
Especially before this one. Especially when there's a priest walking about like a machine priest with Warhammer 40k, blessing all the weapons. And you're like, right, you're either fighting demons.
And then tossing sage around.
Yeah, you're fighting demons, or you're fighting something else that lives in the night. You know what I mean?
Right.
A chupacabra or something like that. But when the revelation came, but what I like about Vic in this instance is her mind's just collapsing. Everything she's seeing around about her.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? She's absolutely.
She's kind of in a catatonic state for most of the procedure, because Bishop's leading the charge, and he's taking out all of these operatives. It's a very small crew going after another very small crew, because if I'm not mistaken, you have like this one basic transport truck, and you have like 6 bikers, 3 in the front, 3 in the back, essentially, and they're just picking them off. But you get this great setup of all the precision that this special ops team has. Like, they throw down the road spike lattice, the lattice road spike piece expertly and quickly. They establish the razor wire at head length, or neck length to be more accurate, for the bikers. Everything just goes pitch perfect to plan. The only variable that they don't account for is Victoria, and she gets thrashed about. Like, and again, this is the second time where her gun is knocked out of her hand. And it's because, again, this is a trope. It keeps getting knocked out of her hand, and then she gets pretty much her butt kicked and has to be saved by, if not Bishop, Atticus.
She gets put into the side of a semi-truck container.
Like
force.
her body basically creates an outline or an indent in her shape.
There is no. Even if you picked up and threw Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar or something like that and bounced them off a semi truck, they're going to bounce off it and die. That's the only bit I kind of went, I'm not buying that part. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not buying it. Like, see, if you tell me she bounced off it and hit the deck and she's like really injured.
And she's because she's not moving. Like, they describe her like she's not moving. The wind's knocked out of her. She can barely move. She can barely get up. The goon grabs her and is basically about to feast on her, and that's when Atticus, I think, punches right through the guy's chest. and
I was a bit of a failure. I was buff right through, and then he looks down and looks at the hand and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I
mean, if this was like a Sam Raimi horror film, that hand would have slapped the guy across the face. Because that's what he would have done.
I ran off and stuck the finger up him and went in a corner or something.
Who knows? But yeah, basically Atticus saves Victoria there, and this is the other part too, which has always been something I was always curious about with vampires, at least in some of these movies. I always think if you're going to have a vampire that gets dusted, leave their clothes behind. Because it's not the clothes that are burning up, it's them. And I understand the whole concept is that they get so hot that they're just burning the clothes off their bodies, but it's technically like spontaneous combustion or internal combustion. It should be all inverted in. Let's let the clothes kind of lay there, because now you have this other aspect too. It's like, oh, the only evidence we ever get that vampires exist there's some weird ash on the ground, and then there's just empty clothes that are torn to shreds or what have you. Like, that's cool, because then that's something your protagonists, especially after this raid that was successful, have to clean up.
I mean, Dyrus on the chat says it perfectly. Dirty ash can keep it PG-13. Transformers, the one with no Revenge of the Fallen, another one. Dark of the Moon. No, Dark Moon. The one with the attack Chicago, right?
Okay.
The exact same thing. They shot people and shot about the clothes. The clothes just people evaporated, but the clothes were there. So clearly it can be done CGI. So I'm 100% with you in that one. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's certain points. I mean, I like this script, but there's certain points in it where I go, I've got to suspend belief to believe that a woman's going to bounce off a semi-truck and like put a dent in it and no die.
Exactly, because that's some pretty strong steel. It's a metal frame with a canvas wrapping around it, which I think don't even know if they still make semi trucks with those containers like that anymore.
Okay.
But in this case here, it's like, oh, she's picked up by her throat and then hurled head over heels, toppling over, smacking right into the back of this thing, leaving a dent, a Vic-shaped dent into the side of the truck. She should have some lacerations, at the very minimum, some fractures from that as well, even if you want to be like movie fantasy.
The very minimum, that woman should be literally pasted against the side of that semi-truck like a big nice wee bit of red on the based on the speed that the script says.
Yeah.
That he grabbed her that quick and bounced her off it. The natural force of getting thrown that fast against a solid, immovable object, she should be paced all over the side of it.
Exactly. You'd be splattered just as if you were dropped off a 6-story building or something.
That's it, absolutely, man. Or you get pinged by a semi-truck at 60 mile an hour. Similar idea.
Something like that,
the point is, I think there's certain points that where you've got to suspend belief.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got to suspend belief. But that's the whole point of these kind of films, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Right. And the fact of the matter is that there's certain levels that you can go to which you can allow for plausible deniability or at least plausible acceptance. A couple of times with Vic, they step over that line quite a bit. Now this operation does go well. Atticus spares one of the vampires, and they speak, of course, in Latin because they have to. It's the old language. And basically, he finds out, well, where are you? Where's where's the territory that you're raiding, that you're doing, that you're taking this stuff to, that you've clearly occupied. And then we've now find their next step, which is this nightclub that they're going to. And this is where, like, we know that there's this nightclub. They go back to their base of operations, and this is where Vic is like, okay, you guys have to level with me. What is all of this? And they said, well, haven't you figured it out by now? It's vampires. We're stopping vampires. And then we get kind of like this Men in Black moment where she's like, well, wait, if he's one of them, Atticus, because he's been revealed to be a vampire, why is he working with you? It's like, well, we have a mutual relationship. Our goal is not really to get rid of all the vampires. Our goal is to basically keep them in check so they don't bleed out into, the daytime hours. And you're like, oh, okay. So I'm like, at this point, I'm seeing a lot of different movies kind of fairly decently blended together. You see Men in Black, you see Blade, you see Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You've got your basic, like a Jack Ryan story procedural here going on. And it's like, okay, you're the writer's, he's making it work enough to the point where it's not falling in on itself. But I did mention to you before the show, is like the tone of this script up to this point, and even a little bit afterwards, reminds me of sadly like a Shannon Tweed skin flick from the early 90s. Like, and I had to Google these because I only remember seeing like little ads on them before, when I was a kid, but they'd always air when I was already asleep. But it's like Victim of Desire or Illicit Dreams, Nightfire, Cold Sweat, and Sexual Response, and all those types of things, because you can.
These are all good ones. All good ones.
They're all good for the prepubescent reasons, and this movie kind of has a little bit of a tone of like, if you're a teenager and you want to see some gory violence and some cool fight scenes and some supernatural stuff, like this is like right up your alley. And it has to be an R-rated film, so it's clearly the one where you got to get like your older sibling or a cool parent or relative to take it to see it, so that you can talk about it with your friends. Like it does have this kind of, that sweet spot of the 90s moments to it.
Yes. There's a definite throwback in it.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's looked at certain things. So obviously you can tell from the script that Blade has kind of mused in the sense of that he's trying to rewrite what Blade was, the original Blade, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we get to the it's even better when we get to the nightclub scene, and you go, they're sitting outside, right? So Bishop's sitting with a grenade launcher, a six chamber, 12, a 6 or 12 chamber grenade launcher, and you're like, that doesn't seem out of place. Now we know what we know. Obviously, she knows what we know, but
Right.
she didn't know we know that. But now she knows that we know that we know she knows. And you look at it, you go, but that's not out of place. And then you've got Atticus floating about, you know what I mean, doing Atticus things.
Right.
And then he goes to the Delta Force guys or the Spec Ops guys, right? And he goes, we can't do that. And they're like, no, we can't do that. It's too loud, you know, Miami PD, blah, 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 blah. And Bishop's like, bro, that's why it annoyed me, right? The bro constantly. Lose that, we're fine.
Yep.
Bro, we'll just, you know, they're vampires. They're not going to phone the police. I get the point, right? But come on, like, these guys are Spec Ops guys. They're telling you what to do. So eventually, as we read on, we learn that, you know, Vic is going to be the sacrificial lamb. The first time she was a sacrificial lamb, she didn't like it because she wasn't told. This time, he turns round and deadballs her and says, take this as your notice.
Yep.
Away you go.
Way you go.
And she
Which
takes off.
I'm like,
Yeah,
this is
all of
classic,
that.
cliche,
Yes.
1980s
Yes.
kind of dialogue
Yes.
in there. You know, something from Golden Globus canon films. Like, hey, like, we're telling you you're going to be the bait, so go in there. And I like the logical way that they set it up in the fact that, okay, we're going to this club. We know this Dorian character is there. And there's only two people on the team that can identify Dorian. One is Vic and the other is Atticus. Atticus can't go in there because he's going to be made because he's a vampire. And this is a vampire club, so they're all going to know who he is because he's been a vampire for hundreds of years. He knows everybody. So the only person that can go in there that's seen Dorian is Vic. So she's given this type of infrared tracer, which allows them to...
That's nice.
Yeah, it's like a tag. And allows she plants it on her goal is to plant it on Dorian so they can find him, follow him, and then apprehend him. I will say this though. So one of the things I did like, which I wish we got a little bit more of, is the script goes out of its way to state that vampires can show up on infrared and spectral scanners, but they have a significantly decreased aura or heat signature about them compared to human
degrees
people.
Fahrenheit, wasn't it? 50
Yeah.
degrees Fahrenheit, half a normal human's
Yeah,
body
because we're like
temperature.
96 or something of that nature, and
Yeah, 11 degrees Celsius, mate.
yeah, and I'm like, that's clever. Like, okay, cool. You're kind of making, you're just like, oh, this is how we can kind of distinguish them on the broad scale. If like we want to find one in public, all we have to do is look for like the cooler heat signature, and then that we know that's a vampire, or at least it's some guy who's anemic. And go ahead, yeah.
Well, this but we'll come to it later on. I love this scene. I'm going to get butchered in the comments, right? But I believe it's Blade 2 with the nightclub scene. Or was it Blade 3? Was it Blade
Well,
1?
the first Blade has two nightclub
The
scenes.
blood.
One in the opening with the blood pouring down from the fire suppressors.
That's it. So, as soon as I read that, I went, Vic's the wrong person. She should be a male, B, Wesley Snipes, and C, have a big ass katana sword. Job's done. That's it done. But I liked how she went in, and I like how they explained when she went in. They were like, no, they're not going to, because Atticus said that they're bloodlust, they're not going to smell her like obviously a human.
Yeah.
They'll smell her scent. I like how she didn't know that, and she's obviously bricking herself. She's obviously really scared. Oh, let's be honest, right? We all would be.
Yeah, she's
And,
outnumbered, and
Yep.
basically
100%.
Bishop's even saying like, how do they not smell her? And it's like, well, they've been so indulgent on all the other blood. She's just going to mask in with the rest of the blood that's there, so she's good to go. She can navigate without being too suspicious. The only thing you have to worry about is does she do her, like if someone says, hey, show me your fangs, she's going to be in trouble. Like, but you know, that's not what's asked of her at this point.
And then we get to the point, right, where we're like, right, it's an underground techno rave. Now, Darius, I hope I said it right.
Yeah,
mate,
Darius,
sorry.
yeah.
Right, right, he said underground techno rave with vampires was in the intro scene of Blade. And I was like, literally saying with this scene, it's an underground techno scene.
Yep.
Where there is all sorts of the bad parts of the Bible, debauchery, mutilation, and just horrible.
They're feasting on bodies that have been brain dead, but they've kept alive to create blood. They're also
Which
going.
we are.
Yep.
in the truck.
which were also in the truck. And they're also having like vampire orgies, which they don't get into too detail, but they basically just say it's a vampire orgy.
I mean, let's be honest, right? If in for a penny, in for a pound, do you know what I mean? If you're going
Yeah.
to be there and it's going to go,
Yeah, go the distance.
You're going to enjoy it. You know what I mean? You're going to go like that and go.
And I mean,
vampire orgy.
it's a very uncomfortable scene for Vic, but she makes her way in. She identifies Darius, plants the beacon on him, and she's about to get out until she realizes, nope, that's not him, because he doesn't have the rose tattoo on the neck. So she's now got to get eyes on the actual guy, and then also get the beacon back and place it on Darius there. And this is causing issues with Bishop and Atticus and the team, because they're timing this down to the minute, and now they're into elapsed time at this point. And
I like this bit because you see it tactically.
Mm-hmm.
So she's inside doing inside things, right? And they're outside, and she's trying to talk to them, saying, I've got it on him. And then it's a wait, hold. No, it's not him. Come again, it's not him. Well, how do you know it's not him? Because I'm looking at him. It's not him.
Yeah.
And then I love the part where he's in front of her, and he disappears like a fart in the wind behind her.
Yep.
And he's sniffing her neck. And he's like, do you not think I could smell you? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about. Put some peril in this shit, man. Do you know what I mean? Put something in this. Do you know what I mean? Because already so far, like, she's fell over, lost her gun several times, right? But there's somebody been there to protect her. Atticus has been there, Bishop's been there, the Spec Ops guys have been there. Do you know what I mean? There's been somebody there. And she's not got these people because she's literally surrounded by the undead. She's surrounded by vampires. So I'm like, I like that. I like how that was done. Just that wee snap. We sniffing on her neck. I'm like, I like that. I like that. And then obviously we move on and where she's captured.
She manages to get the beacon on Darius, and then she follows him down this corridor, and then she gets captured. And him and his goons are about to feast on her, and that's when Atticus disappears, and Bishop's like, you know what? I'm just gonna let loose these grenade launchers into the club. Who cares what the police have to say? And the grenade launchers are not normal grenades. They actually expel garlic, basically garlic gas.
But of course they do.
And
of course they do.
This part is different because they say garlic doesn't actually kill them. It just causes like an irritation or subdues them mildly. So it still it kind of humanizes them a little bit more, so that it's a bit more on even footing ground, even playing ground between humans and them in a fight. And then they storm in with. Of course, all the humans kind of have their gas masks anyways, because even breathing in garlic in a gas form is not going to be comfortable for anybody. So yeah, they go in, they start taking out guys, trying to exfil Vic. You get this one scene where Atticus manages to get like face to face with Darius, and Atticus, he's wearing a gas mask, but he takes it off and he just inhales the garlic gas in the air, and he says, "I'm going to fight you, but I just wanted to be on even ground." I'm like, okay, that's egotistical. He didn't really need to go that way.
That's badass, boy. I like that. That's badass. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got an advantage, but you can take that advantage off, and I will fight you to death. Do you know what I mean? Because I thought that was badass personally, but
it started off badass, and then what ends up happening is Atticus gets his butt kicked.
I mean, let's be honest. He was bad guy number 2. Let's be honest.
And then
it was always going to happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I thought that was great because it shows that he's not, indestructible. Vic has to come kind of save him. Doesn't do a good job of it. She gets kind of thrown through a wall, but she's got the beacon on him, and confirms to Bishop, "Hey, let it loose." And so they switch over from their vampire rounds to the normal rounds and just Swiss cheese Darius, so that because they know that it's going to take time for him to kind of regenerate from that much gunfire, and they managed to get Darius. So it was it would be a visually stunning scene, especially directed well. So like the foundation for it to be an interesting watch and getting everybody on the edge of the seat, it's all there. So like I don't see any fault with that at all. So I actually kind of really enjoyed this part of the scene. I think this is kind of like the make or break moment of the script. If you buy into this, you should be good for everything that follows afterwards. but it is kind of moving at a really good pace now because they've got
Starting to
Darius. They established that Darius is the number 2 to who is the big bad. It's this character named Sub Rosa, and she's like pushing 1,000 years old. We haven't seen her yet, but she's the one that's heading this operation. And apparently she and Atticus have had some history together. Not in a romantic history, but more like just at odds, like rivalries together. So that's why he's helping the FBI to get rid of her. And their whole goal is like, if we take this out, we take out Sub Rosa and all of her goons, we've got the vampire element in Miami under control. And it's back to normal, status quo. So that's the goal that Bishop has. And Vic at this point is still just a pawn in that scheme. But now that they've got Darius, we then get introduced to, of course, their clever torture device. And what is that? Well, it's a sun tanning booth with UVA and UVB rays.
Donald Trump's tanning booth.
Yeah,
that's it.
Pretty much.
Donald Trump's tanning booth.
And they throw him in there, and all it is just a straightforward interrogation scene, kind of very similar to Blade when he's got the ultraviolet light on that fat guy, just burning away the flesh until they give him answers. And yeah, Vic kind of just leaves to get some fresh air and kind of reassess herself and realize that she's now in this till the end. And Bishop kind of gives her a little bit of comforting words and says, "Hey, this is the job, and once this is done, you're part of the team now, and we're just going to keep going from state to state, country to country, making sure everything's all balanced." And then Atticus comes out and he says, "We got our answer." So we don't see exactly how far he had to go with Darius to find out what the location is, but they actually find out, okay, this is their location. They call it El Dorado. And this is kind of where we have to cut off on the spoiler talk, because the next leg of this script is their attack on El Dorado to get Sub Rosa. And this is where a lot of things that have been established so far kind of pay off and wrap up and tie up and everything. And it goes in one direction that is very predictable, and then another direction that is a decent surprise. There's some things I really liked, especially with what Bishop was doing. I thought that was good because he doesn't betray anyone. So that's the other part I want to say. Like, without any spoilers, he's still very much of this company, what's going on, and the script kind of suggests that maybe he would turn about face on everybody, or be, because there's another character we didn't really talk too much about that they use the term the familiar, who works for the vampires. And you get the sense that they might be doing that with Bishop, but that's not the case. I'm going to assuage that idea right now, and we're just going to cut it off on that part there. But we'll talk a little bit. I
actually thought it was like the second coming of Jesus. You know what I mean? How he just walked about without not a care in the world. There's vampires firing normal bullets. There's all sorts of chaos going on in the battle, and he's just walking about like at one point he had no guns, and he went into that Haitian's house with no guns. But he knew that, obviously he knew, but we didn't know that then. We can surmising.
Yeah.
But he knew that he had a vampire in his back pocket, and that was him. He's I don't need guns. So I mean.
Exactly. Like, he knew his team, he knew his capabilities.
It was like something from a higher power. Like when I was reading about him, I thought, I like how it was written.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much on the deck. It was very much like tongue in cheek. Like somebody who could chew the scenery would love this role, because they could just literally eat the scenery.
Yeah, that's what I'll give this script. Bishop is the best defined character in the movie. He has that 80s cringe dialogue, but it works for him. Well, I'll say this. It works for the script unless you shoot it in the tone of, as I said before, a Shannon Tweed 90s movie, in which case you're not paying attention to the dialogue. You're paying attention to the hot chick playing the character and how many times their clothes are going to be.
Sydney Sweeney.
Sure.
Sydney Sweeney, there you go, right?
She could.
That's it.
Yeah, she could. She would definitely be of that part.
Traffic. She can go straight through semi-trailers, straight through houses. We're all jamming here. That's fine. We're all here for that.
Exactly. So, because that's what I'll say here. This script could go in two very different directions without actually changing a word on the page, and that is the tone could be like a late night TV movie after midnight, late night TV movie, or it could be like a Next Blade type of deal. Like those are the two tones that it could go, depending on how you get it, who you cast in it, and how you direct the film. Which I will say that's a little troublesome on my part, but at the same time, it does all of these interesting things that I think a general audience would really, really like. Like, I just think they'd like it.
Hey, well, it's a carry over vampires.
Yeah, that's a good comp.
Just write the thing and here's money.
Right.
Well, I agree with you 100%. When I was reading it, as soon as she saw his blue eyes, piercing blue eyes, and she saw Darius's piercing blue eyes, I'm like, right, I know what's going on.
Right.
These are obviously the same type of creature thing, whatever.
And this is like the tell that's how you can spot the vampires, that they have these piercing blue eyes that they're familiar in the sense that they look kind of human, but there's something extra about them that makes them not human. And this is the same thing that the Haitian guy pointed out, why he was so terrified of that team when they came after him, because he thought, oh my gosh, these creatures that attacked my guys, they finally found me after I've been laying low for months, and now they're going to finish me off. That ended up, not being the case at this point, but it does raise the questions where he's like, yeah.
And the point you said, sorry mate, the point you said is there was like a dozen piercing blue eyes in the shadows. That's all you could see was around the wagons was these piercing blue eyes staring at them. Absolutely 100% right. And I you know what you could do actually? You could actually add some comedic elements into this even further. It's ripe for both.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at the hardcore kind of gratuitous violence, you look at like folk getting cut up, stomachs hanging out, and blah 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 blah. Right? It's a Blade route, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Blade
had its jokes. Yeah.
Just had its jokes. That's it. I think if you cast the right people in the right places, Jessica Chastain would be good as Vic because she plays that kind of agent,
right?
Imperiously, she can do it easily.
Yeah, she's got the familiarity enough that audience would be able to accept it a lot easier, right?
Absolutely. And then if you look at Kevin Bacon, he could choose scenery 100% as Bishop. That's him. Just leave him alone.
Oh yeah.
But see the guy. I can't remember his name, and it's going to annoy me, right?
Atticus
the
or
guy
Eddie?
That plays. No, Atticus. The guy that plays Atticus, right?
Right.
Have the guy that is Jack Reacher on Amazon play him.
Oh, Alan Richson, right? Yeah, big guy, big intimidating dude.
Because then if you look at it, you go, you're a vampire. If he's got nice blue eyes, you're a vampire. Like that's a vampire. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because then you've got that difference between the two. You need to have that subtle difference. Where the audience will go, look, you're a big boy, you, ain't you? And then they'll go, actually, do you know what? He's a big boy, so see. Because they did talk about the bodyguards being quite built and quite, bulky and that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then at some place we'll put Sydney Sweeney in somewhere. Somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
The nightclub scene, we'll put her in somewhere. But I would say, 100%, if they would need to do different things, Marvel would never release this because it makes too much money. So they won't do it. Because it will make money. Because if you put Wesley Snipes as Bishop, for example,
sure,
and then have I'm going to butcher his name, sorry.
Mahershala Ali.
That's the one. As Vic, as a trainee, and have Jack Reacher as his backup.
Right.
There you go. There's your buddy.
That's a good trio. Yeah, that'd be a good trio, right?
Just give me the money. You know what I mean? Just give me the script doctor the money, and we'll write it for you, right? And then just all the money.
Oh yeah, just back up the money truck. Well, I think
have Richard with the Zoolander blue steel look. That's what I'm talking about, Dan. That's
right? Yeah.
Precisely what I'm talking about.
So I mean, one of the benefits of this script is that it flows pretty quickly.
Yes.
The only hang up is that like the next leg of the script is all spoilers, which we would love to talk about, but we part of the terms of reviewing the scripts is we can't. So with that being said, before we get to the final part, what are your final thoughts on this script, Gums? Like what things that you are swirling around in your head that you haven't addressed yet that you think is prevalent for people to get them to read this script and hopefully get some traction behind it so that people can see this come to life.
There's a lot of good in the script. There's a lot of good in the script. There's a lot of good premises. He's using tried and tested tropes in terms of vampires. He's not really trying to reinvent the wheel. He's not saying that they're diamond covered and all that rubbish, right? It's good. I enjoyed it. As a normal person, if I went to a cinema or watched it on Netflix, I would enjoy that. It looks to me a bit like Spectral that was on Netflix.
Right.
I enjoy it because it's absolute nonsense, but it's fun nonsense. And it's got a good cast. It needs a good cast. It needs probably a rewrite, not massively, but especially when we get into the third act and we get into the spoiler territory, there's certain things I go, that's kind of left to centre and that's kind of whatever. I enjoy it.
Okay.
And if anybody wants to read it, go to Patreon, subscribe, read it, and then come and get me at Gums1909 on Twitter, X, or whatever Elon Musk calls it at the moment, and then argue with me. And I'll argue with you that I enjoyed that. And I will take your views, and I will listen to your views, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as a normal person.
So then this is something you'd give as a green light right off the bat. No hang-ups. Absolutely. Okay, great. I'm in the same boat because the issues that I have with the script are not detrimental to the art of storytelling. The only big hang-up I have is that Vic as a character doesn't have their own personal motivation or goals established in the story. They are kind of being dragged through it by the writer. And of course the what I mentioned when you're off camera for a brief moment there, the attempted carjacking scene was kind of stupid because it stops the story cold and you're like, he just stares at the guy and he throws up and walks away. Like, what? Cut that scene out. And the rest of the pacing of this is quite good because I give this a green light for the fact that it's going to be a crowd pleaser, and it's not a pandering crowd pleaser. It's having fun with this premise and doing something, interesting. And I think the last act is something audiences would talk about and appreciate.
Yes.
And so that's why I would give it. I mean, I think the effort to get this script into production shape is minimal compared, and that fits to the qualifications for other scripts that we've greenlit on here as well. That we said, it's got enough potential in here, a couple of tweaks, and this is good to go. And that's the bar I'm holding it to. So we gotta. I recommend reading the script again. As Gum said, just reach out to me. I can hook you up with it. As always, we don't want to try and make the script go viral in the sense of that it spoils potential audiences. We just want to kind of use it as a learning process. Maybe talk about the title and tip our hat to the writer for making it on the blacklist, for having so many producers interested into it. And who knows? Maybe it'll end up being another Madden. That movie's being made.
I was going to say that the first episode ever.
Yeah.
You talked about Madden. There you go.
And there we go.
It's now getting made. Do you know what I mean? I do believe this is one of these ones that could potentially be like Madden. It doesn't need a massive budget, potentially for the gratuitous scenes and whatnot.
Right.
It just shows the Terrifier 3 made that for
pennies.
$2 million.
Yeah, nothing compared to the larger studio films. So it can be done. This movie definitely wouldn't. This movie can definitely be done for $2 million or less.
100%.
So. Yeah,
we're going to start a GoFundMe, right? We're going to start a GoFundMe page now, right? It's not affiliated with the Script Doctor, and what it's going to be get me $2 million so I can put Sydney Sweeney in this movie. That's what it's going to be called.
It could be called that, but fortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have to worry about that because the writer of this screenplay, who only has a few credits to his name, is repped by the biggest talent agency in Hollywood. So I'm pretty sure if he wants to get this produced or someone wants to get this produced, it's probably going to happen. But dude, I know it's late where you are, but I want to thank you again for hanging out with me tonight and coming back onto the show, sharing your opinions. I love the enthusiasm on on your script here, on this script here, that you loved. I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed talking with you about it. Want to shout out your socials again so that people can follow you and see what you're up to, and then we'll call it a night.
They follow me, and then I'm just a pedantic Scotsman that's 40-year-old. They follow me, and then honestly, if you want to see bad memes in Warhammer 40k, I'm at Gums 1909 on Twitter. I know it's the weird one, but however, yeah, here we are. I have a TikTok, but it's basically my dog who's there.
Okay.
And that's it really. But to be honest, I would say everybody, if you get a chance to and you can afford to sling a few dollars this man's way, read the script yourself, and then have your own thoughts on it. Because when I read it, just purely as a civilian, no in the movie industry, no affiliated with anybody. Do you know what I mean? I enjoyed it. There's things that could be done better. With script is picked off.
Right.
I picked off as well, but the basis of it is excellent. And if we're never going to get Blade, let's be honest, it might never happen. This could be the new Blade. It could start off something that's really good. Do you know what I mean? And I start off a new, different way of looking at these type of things because monsters are getting more prevalent now. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, different type of hunting vampire story altogether. That's for sure.
And remember, everybody, 3 things: like, share, subscribe.
Oh, as always, those are much appreciated. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. For those listening on the replay, I really appreciate you checking out the show.
Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful night and a wonderful weekend. And never forget, guys, when it comes to great story, it all starts with the script.